Hey everyone, welcome to an exciting show. We're wrapping up our week of expert conversations, and we always bring the heavy hitter Matt Seamus to the show to wrap it up. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great. Thanks. Thank you for that intro, Michael. That was unexpected.
I like to have fun, man. It's always fun though. We always just go, just like all these expert conversations. We talk for like 60 seconds, then we just hit record. So it's a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I thought I would talk about today is there's really a couple of things, and I think I'm going to switch the order from what we talked about. I think a lot of real estate investors are remembering the last crisis and remembering the deals that were ultimately made, and they're looking for those deals today, right? They're not appreciating that the last time peak to trough was 6 to 10 quarters, depending on your market.
Hmm.
And, we've been into this 12 weeks for Seattle and 10 weeks for California and really 8 weeks for the rest of the country.
Yeah.
So to think we're going to have the deals like last time peak to trough, which again, I sold at the peak, 260, somebody bought it at the bottom for 75, that's a 70% discount roughly. You think you're going to see that price discovery inside of 10 weeks that's just not how real estate works. That's how the stock market works, but that's not how real estate works. What are you seeing around what people's expectations for discounts today?
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree with you completely. I mean, sellers' expectations are generally going to lag buyers' pricing expectations. In other words, in an environment like today, as a buyer, I am going into a transaction immediately or going into a potential transaction immediately thinking, well, I should have more leverage
Mm-hmm.
here as a buyer. And I'm going to be looking for a bit of a discount that maybe I wasn't 3 or 4 months ago.
Right.
And sellers are, dependent on the situation. It's going to just take them longer to come to grips with that reality. And so, yeah, I think you're exactly right. Price discovery right now uh, is difficult. It's happening slowly, and I think that is going to continue. It's going to continue to show up in the form of fewer transactions across the board,
Mm-hmm.
um, less inventory hitting the market. The inventory that hits the market is going to have a story behind it,
Right.
whether it's a story about the asset itself or a story about the owner of the asset. And so I think the real, assets that are in really great condition, financially, physically, kind of just strong investments with limited risk, there's not a ton of incentive as a seller to list them right now.
Right.
I'm, as a seller or as an owner of properties, we're not planning on selling anything really in 2020.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like the appropriate time. The buyer pool is going to be smaller, and the buyer pool is going to have a general, it's going to feel like there's more sharks out there. And
Right.
that's not really the environment that you want to sell into.
Yeah.
You want to sell into an environment where everyone has extreme high levels of optimism, and you can sell the dream. And
Yeah.
I don't see that. I don't see that happening. Price discovery is a slow mechanism.
I think that is so well said. We got to go through that again because people that are watching this from the sidelines and maybe they have some dry powder, which there's a whole lot of dry powder out there right now. Um, what we need to find the deals like last time is a wave of listings, and we need listings upon listings, and listings need to have stories, and they need to have bad debt or bad condition or bad location or wrong type. I mean, like you said, right, there's a story behind all of them. And right now, as we're sitting here at the end of May, listings are down. I mean, we went into this crisis with record low inventory, and we've only gone 20 to 30% lower. And now we're seeing a clear bifurcation in most markets where if there are listings, it's new construction, which is usually above the median, or it's the very high end. In my market, the high end is it's ice cold, right? You're 3x the median in the market I invest in. It's nothing happening. Jumbo loans are a problem, all of that. But everything I buy, I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years, right? The last 3 or 4 months in my target area, which is really poor, it's kind of distressed assets, or fixer uppers, let's call them fixer uppers. I would buy one from 80 to 120 grams, my average purchase price for 3 years. I see 5 of those a week now, where before I'd see 40 to 50. People are just holding them, right? Why? I think your point about if the seller doesn't have to sell, they're not going to list, and they're just going to wait. I mean, that is when you were saying that, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't sell anything today. I mean, why would I? It's the people out there are going to be cheap. They're going to be sharks, as you said. I think that's just so well said. So, do you have any thoughts on when supply might come back? Because that's what's missing. If supply stays where it's at, we're going to have price increases, not price decreases.
Well, yeah, you are seeing, well, okay. So you are seeing price increases in certain areas
No
and in
question.
certain asset classes. Boise, Idaho, in the month of April, hit a record for median home sale price.
Wow.
The highest price ever. Yeah.
April is going to go down, just
Now,
for everybody knows, is the worst economic month in of our history as a country. And here Boise is having a record median price in April. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's an incredible story to me. And I'm sure there are other markets nationwide that have hit, either are at or near records as well. And I think you're exactly right. It's a function of supply and demand. Supply is reduced drastically. There's less inventory. If demand stays constant and supply reduces, you're likely to see an increase in prices.
Yeah.
So, and I think so, like the strong locations, markets that have strong fundamentals, where demographics are moving in the right direction, and where you almost in some ways need to you can't forget about COVID, but you can't place too much emphasis on it either, because markets are relative to each other, and so are assets, right? That you compare them to others. So a market like Boise has really strong fundamentals. It's got, even with COVID, COVID doesn't make Boise less desirable when compared to Seattle or Portland or St. Louis, Salt Lake City, or Pacific Northwest markets. It makes every market, it hurts everyone. But there are certain markets and asset classes that are going to be hurt less because they have really strong fundamentals. Industrial properties in most parts of the country are still in really excellent shape because there's this really strong trend towards needing more industrial space. Rents are relatively low. There's more shopping moving online, and COVID has only accelerated that trend. There's just a greater demand and an increasing demand for distribution centers and warehouse space. That's a positive story for that asset class, for industrial. So I think, it all comes down to, there's so much nuance here, right? Yeah. And none of it, this is the beauty of real estate, is it's an extreme inefficient marketplace.
That is true.
And you and I can look at the same deal and we can see completely different opportunity. Amen. One of us can see major upside. One of us can see only liability.
Exactly.
And, that's the beautiful thing about it is, there is opportunity, no matter what, but that doesn't mean it's going to be everywhere. You have to go look for it. I think I agree with you. And those are some kind of follow-on thoughts there.
Yeah. The other thing to kind of talk about in this, again, you talked about location, right? I think it's increasingly true that New York and the Bay Area are going to suffer an exodus. I've had, I don't know, a dozen of folks that watch this channel reach out to me via comments saying, hey, I got a bunch of New Yorkers coming to rent my house or buy a house, within an hour of Manhattan. And that exodus appears to be picking up steam, not shrinking. And then, I just read that VMware said that they expect 60% of their employees not to come to the office. So they'll be permanently work from home. That's on top of Facebook, on Alphabet, on Twitter, on, so on and so on. I think the Silicon Valley is very quickly going to see an exodus of folks, and certainly out of San Francisco. I mean, San Francisco has been a rough place to live from a price, rent, and then also quality of life with the homeless and all of that going on. I think San Francisco is about to go into a rough decade, pretty much like it was in the 80s. I mean, in the 80s, because I've lived here since the 70s, you wouldn't want to go to San Francisco in the 80s. It wasn't very good. So I don't know what you think about that. What do you think? Your friends, right? You're in technology. You're in the Bay Area. Do you have your network of friends going, hey, you know what? I might want to think about leaving the state, or at least leaving the Bay Area?
Well, I just had a former coworker, and he actually now works at Uber. We worked at Facebook together. He asked me a very similar question specific to his circumstances. He was just asking, what do you think about your single family residential in the Bay Area? We're thinking about potentially moving to closer to family in the Midwest. And, the thing keeping us here has been jobs, right? The specific tech jobs that him and his wife have.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't have, I do agree. I think there will be, I think there will be an exodus from, actually, I think probably from California.
Right.
But I look at, I think COVID is largely accelerating trends that were already started. Like there's already a trend of exiting California. I think that
True.
trend increases. The Bay Area, this is like a 180. This is a full pivot. Urban areas have been very strong recently. And so, but I do agree with you, just simply the density makes it difficult to control a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And the things, when I lived in the city for 7 or 8 years, when we moved, it was largely because we weren't taking advantage of the things that you do in the city. We weren't going out as much to bars and restaurants the way that we did when we were, in our early and mid 20s. And it just felt like it wasn't we weren't getting the experience. We didn't want the experience that the city provided as much as we wanted, a little bit of a slower pace and more outdoors and that kind of thing. So I do think San Francisco, New York, other large urban areas are likely to see anyone that was on the margin, right? That was thinking, okay, I am here for another year. But I'm ready to move out whenever my window opens, I'm ready to go. I think that whole group of people just accelerate their plans, right? They go pretty quickly and they go move back home, closer to family, to a more of a lifestyle, location or destination. And your quality of life in general is going to improve. I mean, that's pretty clear. But so I think that's true. The one caveat that I would say, and this is what I told my buddy as I was talking through with him, is I don't know. Okay, so an exodus from San Francisco, does that mean people move to St. Louis and Chicago and into suburban California areas and into more rural, not even necessarily rural, but just less densely populated areas? Or does it mean that people take a shorter move, like down the peninsula? Do they move from San Francisco down into Palo Alto or San Jose or into the East Bay? And so I actually don't know the answer to that. And I think there's something there. And this guy actually lives in the East Bay. Yeah. So it's not clear to me that is going to be hit as hard as like the kind of core dense urban areas. Yeah. And I think this is also my posture today. It's difficult to make predictions, with very limited data. And I have my own hypotheses, but there's lots of different ways things can play out. I'm not quite ready to call the future just yet. I think there's still lots of things that need to happen.
Well, let me throw this idea at you, because, part of me thinks, okay, if you're already here and you're making it work and you enjoy California and you're comfortable paying the weather tax, right? Because that's really what we pay. What I think happens is we're going to have some people move out, which we're already thinking about it. You're right. Some will accelerate, but what is going to stop is we're not going to get the new entrants, right? That's going to stop. You're not going to move as a new engineer or computer science from Texas or Tennessee or wherever you're the rock star at. You're not going to come live in a 1-bedroom in San Francisco with a buddy, right? You're going to take that Facebook job or Alphabet job or VMware job or whatever, and you're going to code from home. I think that is what stops. And then over time, as the exit just continues and maybe it's 10% or 20% higher, but not meaningful. But if you shut off the new people coming in, that will eventually ripple through. And a year to 18 months out, it'll be a very different supply demand picture. That's what I see coming with pretty good certainty.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. I think that's totally fair. I think, I think for me, at least the way that I invest, what we try to do is understand the demographics and the trends, and not as much make predictions about the future, but see where it certainly is a prediction, because we're determining what is the most likely, we're probability weighting an outcome, with the most information that we have. And I like to have, when I'm going to make a bet, I like to have a high degree of certainty that the demographic and trend outcomes are going to be within some bound, some range that I believe is going to happen. And personally, right now, I love speculating and debating. I just don't know that I'm ready to make a bet on that today. I think this comes back to your point of, a price discovery, and your earlier point of recession taking time to play out. And, you're not, listen, I look back at properties that I didn't purchase from 2011 to 2015. And pretty much everything that I looked at that I was hemming and hawing over, a couple points here or there, that I was like, well, this probably going to be a good deal, but I'm not confident enough in it to pull the trigger. I'm going to wait for a great deal.
Right.
Every one of those deals would have been a home run.
Right.
Like every one of them.
Yeah.
But we're not there. We're not there yet.
No,
like,
we're the opposite side of the bell curve, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. It's going to take some time to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, just my feeling about San Francisco, you could just insert New York for that. I think the same thing applies. I think if you're there and you like it, you're going to stay. I just think it's going to be I think it's the young kids coming out of college with student debt that they're going to, hey, do you want to make $90K a year and live where you are? Do you want to make 105 and come live in a ridiculously expensive area? And I think that's going to be an easy trade-off. And that's just going to dial back, new residents who fill in all the vacancies and the like. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch. So now let's get into the meat of the discussion. When we got to this, when we saw unemployment spike, now we're 40 million people claims, probably 20% unemployment, which we'll see next Friday. Originally out of the gate, I was like, ooh, we might see another 06, 08, whatever we call it, crash where owner occupants are hurt, right? The first attempts at forbearance were not great. Most people would be hurt by it. They have since changed all of that. So now what I'm thinking is residential is going to, for the most part, be okay. There will be exceptions, Las Vegas, Bay Area, New York, Orlando, right? Very tourist areas. But now where I see it's pretty clear, we are going to have the most pain on the commercial side, right? Hospitality will take years to come back. And if you have any debt structure that's short-term, you're in trouble. Value add multifamily bought in the last 18 months, depending on the area, could be in trouble. And again, if that is true, then just giving the debt markets, we are easily talking 2021 before deals are even out there. And that's even to say if they even hit the market, because some of these will be solved by selling the debt, right? Somebody will buy the debt for 80, 70, 60 cents on the dollar, and we'll never even see the property listed. So do you see the same, that, again, most of the pain will be commercial versus residential, given everything we know today?
Yes. If I had to answer very concisely, I think yes, with a lot of asterisks and nuance.
I love it. Go ahead.
So no question, right? Like no question, there are certain segments that are going to get crushed. Yeah. And, but again, like I just can't stress enough, This business is about critical thinking. You cannot paint a broad brush and expect to be successful. I'll give you just a quick example before I go on.
Mhm.
Hospitality, very tough industry to be in right now. A hotel development property, right? So I know there's very little buyer activity for hotel development today. Um, and I do think the hotel industry is going to change pretty meaningfully, and there's going to be a lot of pain in that industry.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, we were looking at a hotel to stay at anytime over the next few weeks. And this property happens to be on the coast, just south of like Monterey. It's on the beach. It's like little bungalows. So you have a little bit of separation. They're 100% booked like for the foreseeable future.
Oh my gosh.
So to say hospitality is going to get crushed and then in the same sentence say, well, here's a hotel that's absolutely knocking it out of the park, probably largely or partially at least because people don't want to go necessarily stay in a high-rise tower,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
they like the concept of staying in a cottage or a bungalow on the beach where you feel like you have a little bit more space and privacy. And so I think I will just beat the drum continuously of you have to think critically. Not all properties can be painted with the same brush.
Agreed.
But yes, I think hospitality is going to be hurting. Retail to a large degree is going to be hurting, but not all retail.
Mhm.
If I own a Walmart, if I own a Home Depot, if I own any kind of auto parts supplier,
Mhm.
O'Reilly's or AutoZone or any of the suppliers, those folks I think are in excellent condition
Yeah, true.
because of just there's going to be fewer people buying vehicles, more people continuing to repair and fix their own cars, and those are generally in really strong locations. Just strong locations within cities. So yes, retail as a whole is gonna see some pain, but there are just segments and specific niches that I think are actually really well positioned. So non-essential retail, yeah, it's gonna be painful for people, but the essentials, grocery, lots of restaurants. We had a restaurant here in Los Gatos that is probably I think it's probably the most well-known and famous restaurant here in town, aside from Manresa, which is like a Michelin star
Mhm.
restaurant. This is more of an everyday restaurant, and they've been around forever. They're closing for good,
Oh,
and it's like it's one of the most surprising. It's one of the more surprising closures for me, just because you can't get in there on a Friday or Saturday. It's just always packed.
yeah.
And so it's just an anecdote for restaurants. I think are going to have a very tough time. I'm imagining if I'm a restaurant owner and I've been in the business for 10 or 20 or 30 years and I know how to run a restaurant, but running a restaurant in the era of COVID is a completely different ballgame. I mean,
Yeah.
everything is different. So do I have the stamina and energy and interest in learning a whole new game? I don't know. I think a lot of people are going to say, you know what? I was out in 2 years. I was thinking about leaving in 2 years when my lease expired. I'm just going to call it quits now. This is way too hard of an uphill battle to
Yeah.
fight. And I think that's so unfortunate, but I do think that's going to happen. So that's my ramble as to, yeah, there's going to be pain in retail. There's going to be pain in hospitality. There's going to be pain in office. But at the same time, contrarian view, office, how many people are going to work from home for a year and realize I can't work from home. I need to be in an office. I can't get anything done.
Yeah. How many
Some,
dog barkings and baby crying in the background are you going to tolerate, right?
a chunk of people. And then also, just because a larger group of people are working from home doesn't mean that those people will never go to the office.
True.
They may go once a week or they may go twice a week for lunch. It doesn't mean that the office necessarily is going to be smaller. The office footprint may actually need to increase. So
Maybe.
I
Yeah.
think there's lots and lots of little nuance here that, just don't be too, I'm not saying this to you, but just
Mhm.
broadly, my advice would be, let's not paint everything yet with too broad of a brush.
Yep.
There's lots of different things that will need to continue to play out. And that's my belief.
Yeah, and again, I think this goes back to the last conversation we had, which for most people, this is the time to learn a market, learn an asset type, right? If you have a full-time job and that's what you do, you really do need to be learning your market, because I think it's going to be very noisy probably for the rest of this year, right? Most people that are watching this channel are probably on the residential side. And I think residential is going to be as noisy as I've ever seen it. Again, we have a supply problem today where it makes sense as a cash flow rental. We have unemployment in different areas affecting different things. We have forbearance, which could go up to a year. And I mean, just all of and then we also, what we should be talking about is not only forbearance, which, oh, by the way, only went up 7,000 this week. So that was a pretty cool number, where it was going up hundreds of thousands. So I was shocked at that. That's kind of cool. But we also have late payments, right? Because not everybody qualifies. Not everybody has a Fannie or Freddie loan, right? Those are, well over 3 million people now. So it's going to be a very messy year, and you should be ready that you may not get a deal this year. It could go to 2021, but if you spend the next 6 or 7 months learning your market, you're going to be ready. It could happen this year, but I'm just telling you, it might not.
Is the forbearance you're referring to single family homes
Correct.
or owner
Residential.
occupants?
Residential. It's actually any residential loan backed by the government. So it could
Yeah.
it could be up to a fourplex. But
Conventional. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So if you have one of those, right, you could. I know plenty of investors who have called and asked for it, even though they are collecting rent, which is a different problem. That's not cool, but they did anyway. But that's why forbearance could easily take the wave of listings or pain and just dump it in 2021. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's reasonable. Um, what are you seeing in your market in terms of price discovery? I mean, you kind of alluded a little bit to the just drastic reduction in volume or
Mm-hmm.
drastic reduction in inventory.
Yeah.
What's the mood like? What's the mood like though?
Oh,
Can you feel something different?
oh, for sure. So let's just answer all of it. And if I miss any of it, just ask again. So
Okay.
first and foremost, I believe the average price is going to fall, but it's going to be a statistical anomaly, because what's happening in my market is, the average, I've always called it, is 260, right? The median is 260. What's happening in my market is anything 500 and above it's ice age. It's just frozen, right? Um, and historically that was 50% of the transactions, hence median, right? So let's lop off 50% of that. And then what's happening if you're below the median, and if you're below 150, that stuff is just flying off the shelf, right? Because that demand never left, or if it did drop, it didn't drop by as much as supply did. So yeah, you list a house that I would be flagged by. My average answer is we already have 7 offers, 6 are over list.
Mhm.
Right. So if you are
And these
selling
are
some,
investors, do you think, or these are owner occupants,
yeah,
first time home buyers?
none of the stuff that I'm offering on would qualify for a Fannie Freddie loan, right? The condition
Yeah.
is not
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
So these people are truly paying cash at least most of the time, right? Some of them may have
Mhm.
some hard money or private money, but most of these people are cash buyers, right? So in my market, there was probably 40 to 50 active buyers, meaning they'd buy 10 properties a year. Let's just say it was 50. I bet you today it's 35, but those 35 are pretty deep pockets, and I'm probably right in the middle of that, right? So there's people with more than me. They're still swimming. I mean, I'm closing a deal today. Money's should actually record while I'm on this call. So deals are still getting done, but it's off market. Anything that gets on market is being bid up to stupid levels. So it's interesting, and it's picking up, but still listings are so down. I mean, just crazy. Real estate agents have to be going broke, right? Because there's just not enough transactions below the median, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting. What about, what's your, this is a little bit of a departure, but related.
Mhm.
What is your general advice for maybe one of your readers, um, to when someone is considering, you know, for lack of a better term, loading the gun and
Mm,
waiting for a great opportunity
mhm,
versus taking down what is going to be a lower risk,
mhm.
less upside, but still good opportunity today. And you kind of, I want you to, if you can, kind of tease apart a little bit. I want to make that a little bit more generic than right now in the age of COVID.
Yeah.
But generally, how would you answer kind of
Yeah.
that question?
So once what, the number one thing I always talk about pre health event, post health event right now is you have to learn your market. I generally think that takes 90 days of looking every day. Hence just a new challenge I rolled out called the 75-day hard challenge for real estate investors, where, one of the tasks is you need to look at your market twice a day, right? So if you're willing to learn your market, I believe you should be aggressive all the time, right? I've written probably 50 offers during COVID, maybe a little bit more, but they've always been at the price that I knew was a good or great deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think I've had 4 counters and I'm going to get 1 transaction. That's a horrible ratio. It's almost like 2006 ratio where, right, 50 offers, you only get 1 deal. My average is usually better than that. But I think, if you've learned your market, if I take that away from your conversation, I don't believe in loading your gun. I believe in writing offers that are good or great all the time. So yeah, if you've learned your market and you can tell me your average return is 6 and you're writing deals that make 8%, go do it. But you need to have confidence in yourself. Stop trusting others. Do your homework. Do your homework. Do your homework. But if you're doing that, I'm writing offers. I mean, I wrote 50 offers. So I mean, I always tell people what I'm doing. So I think it's a great time to buy. It's not as a great time as I thought it would have been 10 weeks ago, but that's just where we are. There's no inventory.
Yeah. And for whatever it's worth, I like your answer. I like that answer a lot, especially for single family homes. Like, I think you need to enter this with the mindset that this is going to be a numbers game. You're going
Yeah.
to write a lot of offers. You're going to get people that don't respond. You're going to get a lot of people that probably don't respond.
Yeah. I would
What you
say,
can't do.
I'd say of the 50 people, more than half told me to F off.
Yeah.
I mean, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's okay, because I had
So,
confidence knowing what the right number was.
so let me ask you this. How do you protect your reputation
Hmm.
when you, for right or wrong, right?
Mhm.
You may be offending a seller with a low offer. I've never asked you this. I'm curious how you, or do you even think, is that even a factor? Do you even care?
So I care about the agent, the
Mhm.
listing agent. I care about them because it's very likely that they're going to be in the business long enough and they're going to see me. So one of the things that always goes out with my offers is I've written a letter basically telling the seller it's addressed to the seller, but it's basically written so the listing agent can know who I am. Hi, my name is Michael Zuber. I've been in the business 20 years. I've been buying in Fresno for this. You can check me out here, here, and here. Oh, by the way, here's my book, my YouTube channel. If we go into contract, I will close, but I have to make an offer that makes sense to me, right? And
Yeah.
if you want to check me out, there's dozens of people in Fresno that know me. So that's basically what the letter says, and that just goes out default with all of my offers. And again, what I'm doing there is I'm trying to write it so the listing agent reads it. Do I really care about a one-off seller? No. I mean, I hope they read it, but I don't really care.
Yeah. I love it. I love that.
Yeah. So again, it's about learning your market, keeping your reputation. Really, what the big question is, you got to work with your listing agents or the agent representing me. I have to call him and tell him, going, hey, you're going to write 10 offers for me this weekend, right? Go get a template ready. So you just change the address, the APN, and the price, and let's just go.
Well, I'll tell you this, and this is unsolicited, so don't blush too hard.
Oh no.
But I do, if I rewind, and I incorporated, some of these methods that you teach, I believe that my single family home purchasing business would have probably grown much more quickly. And I think I would have probably had many, many other deals that I just never bought.
Mm.
So I do think it's worth, I think what you're teaching is right, you know, and I can't say that I know 100% of the ins and outs of your approach, but I do think that, that it is strong, and it would have made my business stronger.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, the things that I'm trying to teach is I'm trying to demystify real estate investing, specifically residential, right? Commercial is a different animal. But most people that are watching this channel, they're going to buy residential, and they probably should. I'm on record saying the single family home is going to be the best investment for the next 10 years, right? Apples to apples. Because people want space, renter nation, cheapest debt, tax advantage. No, you can get 30-year. I mean, the list goes on and on, right? 30-year fixed rate with a 3 on it. I had somebody get a 2.99 on a 30-year loan the other day. I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, I got a 7.5% loan when I started. I can't even imagine 2.99. Jesus Christ. So yeah, I think I appreciate that. And I think it's about learning your market. I think you should be focused, learn the skill of learning your market. Don't look at 17 markets. Don't waste your time. I actually tell people all the time, don't spend your time trying to find the perfect market. What you need to do first is learn the skill of learning a market. Once you've learned the skill of learning a market is like a golf swing. Your golf swing will translate to any golf course, right? So if you can take it from the range, you could take it to any course. So if you spend 90 days learning a market and you've got it wired, you can take that skill, which you can equate to a golf swing, and go elsewhere if you choose to, right? The golf swing travels. But if you spend 3 weeks here and 2 weeks there, and I mean, you'll just never learn anything. And that's dangerous. So I'm glad you said that. And, you know, it's fun to help people. It really is. Because if you can just get them 4 rentals, most people's lives are changed forever.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No doubt. And that's very doable. Yeah. It's doable. It doesn't need to be done in 12 months.
No, you can do it in 8. You do one a year, one every other year, right? Exactly. I mean, if you want it, your life's fundamentally changed. You can, I've talked to many new parents, and they always ask me, should I do a 5 to 29 plan or all these other things? I'm like, hey, if you're asking me, you should get 1 rental property per kid. That way in 18 years, it's going to be more than half paid off, and you could sell it, you could refi it, you could give it to the kid, whatever you want to do. It's their college fund right there. As long as it's in a decent location and it's well taken care of and all conservatively financed and all that stuff, a single family home bought with the intention of transitioning to a kid is going to be much better than some 529 account, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So very cool, man. Any kind of closing thoughts as we wrap up this week and we head into the weekend?
I've been home with, being primary caretaker for, it's been 8 or 10 weeks. And on Monday, our nanny comes back. So my schedule is going to free up next week considerably. So I am looking forward to that. Although it's a double-edged sword, I actually reached we kind of got into a little bit of a groove. I'm having a lot of fun with my 2 older boys.
Nice.
And listen, this is also the beauty and the flexibility of this industry. We have a deal that we're going to close in a couple of weeks. If I didn't have that deal that we were closing, you know, I would have a lot more, even more time and flexibility on my hands. And I think that, you know, that's something that I've reflected on a little bit during the last few months is this business can buy you freedom.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just have been grateful for that, but I'm looking forward to getting back to work because I like to go work hard.
There you go. Well, very good, man. Thank you very much for doing this. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk next week.
All right, Michael. Thanks, man. Take care.